Good morning. I'm Lillian Lodge Copenhaver, Executive Director of the Lillian Lodge Copenhaver Center for the Advancement of Women in Communication at Florida International University. I'm delighted to welcome everybody to our Zoom workshop, Women in Careers, Repositioning for a Post-Virus World. I think you are all well aware that we will be facing a different reality in many ways in a post-virus world. This will be particularly true for those of you in the early years of your career, or those entering or having to re-enter the job market. All of the fields of communications are changing, so this workshop will explore how participants can cope with and capitalize on that change, and how they should evaluate their skills and perhaps repurpose themselves for new or changing careers in the future, as well as look at the possibilities that exist or will exist. We're going to begin with a discussion with our speakers, and then we will go to Q&A. Let me ask all of you now to mute your screens. Then when you want to ask a question, type it into the chat room or unmute yourself. It's now my pleasure to introduce our speakers. Stephanie Bertini, reporter and host at NBC6 here in Miami, is an award-winning journalist with more than a decade of experience in television. Her career has brought her to several local news stations in both the United States and Canada. Currently, she reports for NBC6 News in South Florida. Her range of expertise includes anchoring, investigative reporting, and producing, as well as entertainment, traffic, and weather hosting. Bertini joined the NBC6 News team in May 2015. After reporting for the ABC affiliate in Central Florida. Before that, she spent more than 3 years in Texas at the US-Mexico border, where she anchored, reported, and produced investigative stories for the ABC affiliate there. She started her news career north of the border, working for Canadian television station CTV News Northern Ontario. Bertini has received several industry honors for her work, including an Emmy nomination, 2 regional Edward R. Murrow Awards, and a national Edward R. Murrow Award. Rosanna Fisk, Senior Vice President and Corporate Communications Leader for Florida and the Southeast regions for Wells Fargo and Company, leads all aspects of corporate and marketing communications, including executive advocacy, social media, internal and external communications for 6 states with more than 1,200 branches and offices and nearly 31,000 team members. She's a nationally recognized executive with more than 25 years of experience developing comprehensive marketing communications, brand positioning, advertising, and public relations strategies, working with some of the world's leading brands, including American Airlines, GE, Charles E. Schwab, Anheuser-Busch companies, Absolute Vodka, Visa USA, and MTV Networks. Fisk is a recognized expert in diversity communications and was named one of the top 100 influential Hispanics in America by Hispanic Business magazine. The first Latina CEO of the Public Relations Society of America, she was inducted into their prestigious College of Fellows for those with vast accomplishments in the practice or education of public relations. And I want to note that last year, Rosanna was inducted into the School of Communications and Journalism Hall of Fame as an alumnus. So these are our terrific speakers today. I'm going to turn it over now to Stephanie Bertini. And Stephanie, it's all yours.
Thanks, Dr. Copenhaver. So first and foremost, thank you to everyone joining us. And thank you to Florida International University, the Copenhaver Center, for the opportunity to have me here in this digital online sphere. We've done some work together over the years. Throughout the time I've been in Miami reporting in person. So this is something different for us. We're excited. Definitely the times we're in. Segue to the topic of our conversation today. As we get ready to tackle what will be really the waters we don't know yet, unknown waters, so to speak. There's a lot of questions we have from the top down, from the bottom up. So for everyone who's joining us today, whether you just graduated, you're finishing up, or you just entered the job market and now you're thinking what's going to happen, or maybe you've already had a hit. What I mean by a hit is you just got a job and now you've been laid off, or you were getting ready to look for a job and now you're hearing there's hiring freezes. Everybody who's working has similar stories, similar issues. These are questions we're all dealing with. And that was part of the reason we wanted to do this. It's an opportunity for me to really be able to have a two-way dialogue, because I'm reporting on the economic hardship, especially of this health crisis with the current work I'm doing at NBC. And so I know about that well, but how does it intimately affect those who haven't even entered the job market yet or don't have much experience? We want to give the opportunity to sort of address your concerns. Rosanna, so pleased to be able to have you here, because for me to be able to dialogue with somebody who within the field of communication, we have very different experience. You're coming from a different kind of leadership role, where I think I'm coming more from solely a craft perspective, but we need all voices for this type of thing. Rosanna, why this conversation? Why now? Why did you want to lend your voice to this topic?
Well, thanks, Stephanie, and thank you, Dr. Copenhaver. It's great to be here with all of you today. I really appreciate the opportunity. Why this conversation and why now? I think this is such a crucial moment that we're all experiencing, this entirely new normal that we're calling COVID pandemic and all that we're dealing with. And now, of course, let's not forget what transpired last week and over the weekend with all of the protests and all of the feelings that I think we're all feeling around George Floyd's killing. So there's such I've heard from friends that they just wish 2020 would be a redo, and that they, for the golfers, they say, I want a mulligan, I want to do it over again. And then I think about the class of 2020, they don't get a redo, they don't get to do it over again. This is their reality. So, the why now and why this is relevant is because we all have to understand that this is not going away, and we have to adapt. We have to find new ways of defining who we are and what we do. And we have to really determine how are we going to come through as ourselves, yet maybe a tweaked version of ourselves as we go through all of this. And really, it's more important than ever to be a prepared communications professional. It's the one thing that is tying us all together, regardless of what field you're in, is communications. Look at how we're communicating via Zoom right now. And that's what people are seeking more than ever, is contact and connection and communication with one another. So.
Absolutely. And you touched on so many things. We're going to cover a lot. We want to let everybody who's joining us today to know, first of all, we're using, as Dr. Copenhaver said, the chat section for your questions. We want this to be very interactive. Rosanna's prepared to answer your questions, as am I. And even if you just have a suggestion of a direction you'd like to see this conversation go, type it in the chat. I'm monitoring it. We're going to integrate that. We're also going to try to integrate some of you live because we really want to hear your voices. We want to start off, Rosanna, I want to draw on your experience, because in preparation for this workshop, we talked about it. We talked about being able to, and you hit it, adapt, being resilient, and being able to wear different hats and being comfortable with that, right? Talk to those joining us today about the range of things you've done in your career, because you didn't start where you are. And usually most of us start somewhere a little lower down, even if it's a totally different sector of the communication business. So why don't you share a bit of your story? Because I think that's very important from the beginning to now.
Sure. So I started as a reporter. I actually worked for what's now the defunct Night Ritter News wire service, which was then bought up by UPI and then by AP. And one of my colleagues at work is a former AP editor, so he probably has an idea of that story. But I started as a reporter, and one of my sources in my reporting days became a good friend and somebody that I really admired, and somebody that became a mentor. And as we got to know each other over my covering his industry over years, you know, he asked me a really silly question, like, what's your plan for the future? And I said, well, what are you talking about? I'm a reporter. This is my plan for the future. This is it, you know. Hopefully do well and get good stories and tell good stories. And that's what I planned. And he said, no. I mean, like, what do you want for your life? Like, what do you want to get out of it? And I knew, I mean, you know, I was young and I didn't know what I wanted. That's the truth. And probably like many of the students that are graduating, you know, they're not really sure what they want out of their lives. And it's a really hard question to ask someone at, you know, 20, 21, 22, what exactly you want out of your life. And as I started to think more and more about it, and I started to look around me, I realized, okay, if I really want to do this for a living, how is this going to work out? And what things are important to me? And what's really relevant? I wanted to be closer to family, so I wanted to move back to Florida. I wanted to live in a warm climate, and I was in New York City at the time, so I wanted to live in a warm climate. So I wanted, again, to get somewhere south. And so the opportunity came to be the marketing assistant in a corporate marketing department. And I thought, I don't know anything about marketing. I'm a reporter. Like, you know, what does a reporter know about marketing? Right. And what my source said to me was, you ask really important questions. And I wish that people in my marketing and communications department would ask the questions that you ask. And if you can keep asking those questions and keep raising issues when they need to be raised, you'll be fine. You'll learn everything else. Right. So that's how I moved into corporate marketing. And from there, I, you know, went from corporate marketing and started to really move more into public relations. I did advertising and marketing, you know, for a period of time, then moved into public relations and did public relations in the agencies, did multinational agency and mid-sized agency, and even a small agency, and then went off on my own, did that for a while. And then, of course, got the opportunity to be a professor at FIU, which I loved. So yeah, moved to be a professor at FIU. The best part of doing that is, of course, the students. Right. And loved every second of that. And I see, by the way, I see some familiar faces of former students on here. So this is very cool. That's good. Yeah, so, and then I, you know, came to Wells Fargo almost 7 years ago now, which is hard to believe. And I have the absolute best team on earth. And I will say that to everybody and anybody, because they are the best people to work. So there you go.
And the point of that story is there was a lot of movement. There was guidance from maybe, you mentioned that one person that asked you, what's your plan for life? And then, of course, within that, there was, I'm assuming, but I probably know, there was some doubt, there was some self-questioning, there was resilience. And there was the push to keep going, right? Because as we grow and as we define ourselves and as we acquire work experience, we continue to understand our journey. And what I always like to say, Rosanna, it's about walking in your purpose. You need to know why you're doing it. And my big takeaway from this is, I want the messaging to be adapt, be resilient, be ready right now with this job market to understand you need a plan A, you need a plan B, you need a plan C. Be willing to do some searching and to ask yourself those hard questions. Well, if I can't do this thing I want to do, what else can I do? What skills do I have? What's my personality set? But then I also want this messaging to include, don't let go of the dream. Because the dream is that big thing, that big reason, like you said, Rosanna, What do you want out of your life? That is the motivator. That's what drives the dream. And what we're trying to do today, we have, I see 64 participants. That's the number we're at right now. We want each and every one of you to walk away from this understanding that this isn't about letting go something you wanted to do last year and now you're hearing you might not be able to do. This is about holding on to that, but being able to maintain, to grow, to adapt, to be relevant, and to be resilient. And I wanna get some quick things, some tools off the top of your head. Rosanna, you're in charge of a lot of people. What are you going to tell these 64 right now with us online participants about what they should be doing? Couple tangible things as we deal with this job market right now.
So one, you're talking tangible, so very tactical.
Like, what can I do today?
Yeah. So the number one thing I think you need to do is really determine what the needs are. When I say the needs, I mean, where do you want to go and why would someone need you? Okay, so it's not about just finding a job, it's about really determining what the need is and then how you can fulfill it. So, I like to say that it's wonderful that you're looking for a job, but the job may not be looking for you. Mm-hmm. So you got to really determine the needs that exist, whether it's in a corporation or in an agency or in a news environment, wherever. What are the needs and how can you fulfill those needs? And if the second tangible thing that I would say is once you determine that, figure out what you need to do to fulfill that need. Is it that you need additional training, additional schooling? Maybe you need to actually take a couple of courses in Dreamweaver or whatever it may be. Right now it's the opportunity for learning quite a bit. I think a key component to the branding message is really setting up a brand positioning message for yourself and really understanding what it takes to, how do you create that brand positioning message? When was the last time that you did one for you? As professionals in communications, and probably many of the advertising people understand this, before we even get started on anything, we have to either create an objective or create a brand positioning statement.
Right.
And for those, the first thing you got to look at is who is your target audience, right? I love reading these messages that have this these resumes that have this wonderful paragraph on the top that talk about their objective. I want to find a job that does this. That doesn't tell me anything about you and what you can do for me. I would say remove that because that's a waste of space, and really talk about what is your brand positioning statement. And you have to do that by creating something that speaks distinctively as to whom you are as an individual, but also as to what you can do for the company that you're trying to get a job with. Yeah. So, if you're looking at a brand, let's just talk about brand, right? You're looking at a brand, what are the brand benefits? What are the brand attributes? And then based on the brand benefits and attributes, who needs those things, right? Who is going to buy my brand based on the benefits and the attributes? And it applies to you personally as well. What are my brand benefits? What are my brand attributes? And which is the company that is going to benefit greatest, or which is the target audience that is going to benefit greatest from having me be part of that?
I want to touch on this because you keep alluding to it and you're right. So when I say hold on to your dream might be very far away from what your ability is, right? But part of holding on to your dream involves researching what that dream is. It involves knowing what you need to get there. And that's why networking is important. If I want to turn into some executive at Wells Fargo, well, now I know Rosanna, we've worked on this workshop. I can email her, I can call her, I could say, Rosanna, this is where I am. I don't know anything about that world. If I wanted to get there in 4 or 5 years, what would I do now? That's how this works. So if you want to be a news anchor, you're certainly not going to be a news anchor, pandemic or not, coming out of school. I can almost guarantee you that if you do get hired as a news anchor, I would say you won't be a successful one because you don't have that experience. So what do? You say, this is the dream. What do I need to do to get there? So now if you're watching this webinar, you have me. You know that you can email me. You can find me. My email's on the internet. You can find me on NBC's website. You have that talking point to reach out and say, da, 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 what do you suggest? And the thing is, a dream is not an easy thing to acquire. That's why it seems so far-fetched. It's not, I want this today, I get this today. I've been in the reporting game for almost 15 years, and I'm not where I want to be yet. I'm still on the journey. A lot of us are still on the journey, and that is perspective everybody needs, pandemic or no pandemic. Would you agree, Rosanna?
Yeah, and I want to go back to something that you said about researching your dream, and and research overall just being so immensely important. I'm going to use another example, somebody on my team who came in for the interview, and this was the final interview, by the way. So when we get to the Wells Fargo interview process is a little extensive, let me first say that. So when you get to the finalist interview, it means that you're probably one of two people in the final round. And so this person came into the interview, and he sat in front of us, and now they know because I said he, they have a clue as to who it might be. He sat in front of us and said, well, I read the last 3 articles on you, and I can see what your key mission is and what you're trying to achieve. And by the way, I think that we can really leverage that and move it in this direction. And then started talking about what he could do based on the research that he had done.
That's a way to get a job.
And how important that was.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, we were blown away. We were like, oh my God, it's like he's working here already. And, in addition to that, he had done research on all of the people that were interviewing him, all our social media. He knew what we had been posting. He knew what we had been talking about. And I saw last week that you posted that Wells Fargo was doing this and this and this, and how cool, and, got a lot of engagement. And I mean, we were blown away by that level of research. He knew, he had done research on all of us. And that was really impactful in the deliberations when we were talking about, he really wants this. He knows what he wants. He's done the research, and he's moving forward to get it.
And we all know, we all have time to research nowadays because we're just doing less socially. So you have that time to really plug in, put like that. I have no time. It would pass things out. You have the time to do that now. So it speaks to Rosanna's point. I want to touch on the fear. We can't ignore that. We might have some professionals joining us from different levels of the communication business that might have been laid off. It's a reality of what we're dealing with. And when you enter a post-job world after this type of pandemic, you are, as a new professional, now facing competition from people who were great and doing it maybe for 10 years and just got laid off because of the economy. So that is something very real. I want to, before you pick this up, Rosanna, we can actually put this out as a poll question. We have 66 participants with us right now. We're gonna, Lillian, if you can hear me, Lillian's one of our hosts. She's gonna type this up as a poll question. Please engage with us. The question will be, are you afraid of the job market you're entering? And this is for new professionals and professionals who have been laid off but re-entering. Are you afraid? I want to talk about fear, Rosanna, because I got to tell you, out there reporting, telling the stories of the people in South Florida, which is the area I cover, fear is predominant. Whether it's, I'm afraid I can't feed my family, whether it's, I'm afraid of what's going to happen after this. I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job because my sister did and my neighbor did and my kid's mother did. Whether it's, I'm afraid for my kids to go back to school, afraid for my kids to go back to daycare. Fear, fear, fear. How do you battle fear? Because that can internalize. It can make you very insecure.
Wow. Hang on, let me put my psychologist hat on. I think everybody battles fear differently, and you got to do what works for you. I tell you how I battle fear. I become an expert at whatever. So I do more research, I do more learning, I gather more information, I become, the more expert I am at something, the more comfortable I feel with it.
So Rosanna said that when she's facing fear, she arms herself with information. So let's say it was the health crisis, you would want to know everything there is to know about COVID-19, right? Like, let's say you have something that you're dealing with, your finances, your personal finances. You want to know what you need to know to get yourself out of that. A legal battle. What do you need to know? You're arming. I love that. I can tell you what I do. I channel hope. And let me explain that just a little bit. I come, like many of us do, from a family of immigrants. My grandparents on both sides immigrated to Canada. We're Italian, both sides. And they fought from the beginning. When I say the beginning of that immigration story, with little money, with little resources, to achieve that, what in America is called the American dream. I guess in Canada, we kind of call that too, to achieve that dream, that ideal lifestyle, right? And I think about that. And they're part of my reason why. And then I think about all the stories I've told. Before I wanted to be a professional reporter, I wanted to nevertheless be a broadcaster, radio or television. I wanted to be in that sphere. Why did I want to do that? My dad was a DJ. He's in the entertainment business. I grew up watching him on a mic. He's part of my dream. When I think about why I want to be successful today, why I want to be a good mom, because I was raised by a good mother. That's part of the purpose and the dream. And when I think about the stories that I've told, I'm telling stories right now. I'm working on a series for NBC6 called Helping Hands, #HelpingHands NBC6. Everybody Google it, but it's growing. And what we're doing was telling stories about people struggling with money, struggling with the economy. That's the financial toll of the pandemic. And when I'm covering these stories, I'm remembering the people that I covered at the border in South Texas, undocumented immigrants, people who were poor, people who were afraid, but did it for a goal, for a dream. And I think about my big dream and why I want to do that, and the kind of mom I want to be to my son, and why I want to give back to all of you, and why I'm here hosting this webinar. It's because I believe in education, and I believe in mentorship, and I believe in will. And you know what that hope helps me do? It helps me go out every day. It helps me report during a pandemic when I know the reality is I could bring the coronavirus into my home and I have a child that I'm responsible for. It helps me tell the stories fearlessly of the people who need help. We have 57%, looking at the poll, 57% of our participants, Rosanna, are saying yes, they fear that the job market, 31% saying no, 14% other. My point is, I channel that hope because that is what drives me. But I'm also realistic, because if I can't pay my bills, if I don't have a resume that meets the job that's there now and not the job that's there tomorrow, I gotta be realistic. And the realism, I think, is something you either always had as a personality trait, which I didn't. I was a dreamer. I'm still a dreamer, but it's built with maturity and with understanding the world. And this is why you need to have both. You need to have the idea and the dream and the goal and the fight in you. And you need to be like, look, I want to do this, but PR firms, they're not hiring right now. What am I going to do? And I'm telling you, take that inventory of yourself. Channel what you do have and take that process of self-discovery. We want to open this up. We want to include some of our participants live. We've been here for 55 minutes. We started a touch late. So anyways, around 52 minutes. We have 67 participants, Rosanna. So there is this thing you can press to raise your hand if you want to be live, or you can type it to us. Lillian is going to drive it from behind the scenes. So if anyone wants to join us live, let us know. How do you stay confident and do what you need to do while understanding the very real reality that, like, nowadays shaking a hand is not considered ethical. It's not considered health conscious. Can we talk about that? Because we're both learning that as well, I would say.
Yeah, completely. We were actually having this conversation in our leadership meeting. What is considered okay now? Are we gonna, do what the Eastern world does of, bowing when you enter a room versus shaking a hand? So I think, the cultural aspects that this is going to have, the impact that COVID-19 is going to have from a cultural perspective, are going to be long lasting. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what's right. I think you got to approach it from a standpoint of admitting, I don't know what's right here. We're not sure how to move forward, but here's what I'm here to do, and here's what I'm here to say, and here's what I'm here to share with you. And that shows both humility and confidence. So, and makes you also very likable in that you're thinking on your feet. So back to that adaptability.
Absolutely. Dr. Copenhaver, did you want to weigh in at all about the discussion? Because this was really your idea from the inception. And I know you really felt that this was an important thing to have as a resource. And you're so invested in the development of our young professionals, our young talent. Did you want to weigh in at all?
Well, I think this has been a really energizing discussion, and that's what we sort of hoped to start with. One of the things that we're planning to do is to continue these kinds of workshops throughout the fall, because I think that it's so necessary at this point for us to consider some of the kinds of things that have been talked about today. I think the comments have been great, and there have been a couple of questions I noticed in the chat room. One said, there was one recent one, and please, folks, you can just join in live. You don't have to even type. But one of them talked about, will diversity and inclusion be more of an influence in the job market coming up? And that was just a recent one. But also, maybe you can talk to that. Rosanna, you're kind of the queen of diversity in so many ways throughout your career.
Yeah, I definitely think so, especially as we're seeing, the disproportionate numbers of diverse communities being affected by COVID-19 more than any others. So do I think it becomes a greater part? No, absolutely. But I think I'm too biased already. I've bought into D&I. I think, we call it D&I for short, for diversity and inclusion. When you're thinking about diversity and inclusion, I have one of the most diverse teams in the company, and it is so awesome to have that. It is so awesome to know that I have so many different perspectives in my team that can offer so many different ways of looking at something. And by the way, we're also thought of as, one of the more creative teams. Well, I wonder why that is. It has a lot to do with our diversity. We come up with innovative things. We think about stories from a different perspective. We tell messages talking about, really thinking through about who is this going to affect and how. And so, yeah, I definitely think diversity and inclusion is more relevant than ever. And I think it's going to continue to be more relevant when we get the census results from the census 2020.
Why don't we start with Maria Elena Useche? Is that how you say your name, Maria Elena? Would you join us? Can you unmute it yourself right there? Yeah.
Hi, very nice to meet you all.
Where are you from?
I'm originally from Venezuela, and I'm doing the Master's in Global Communications.
Great, at FIU.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Tell us, what did you think of this? Would you come back for another one? Something different?
Definitely. I love it. I'm learning a lot from you guys, because I am a journalist, but my career I developed it down in Venezuela.
Why did you wanna join us today? What was the real personal reason you came?
Mira introduced me to Mrs. Copenhaver through email, and they both invited me to this meet, because I was a little shocked with summer classes, because I was not able to connect with a person through one of the classes. Okay. And to me, being in a communications education and to
in the sphere,
in the field, it was very hard to assimilate the fact that I was going to do a class and not see a professor, not even through Zoom, during the entire semester.
Thank you for being with us. And Dr. Copenhaver is a very good person to be introduced to. I'll say that. I'll vouch for that, Dr. Gay. Let's call on Anna Soler. Anna Soler, is this Soler? She's scared. Open your mic up, Anna. We just want to know, are you an FIU student, or where are you coming from? Why did you decide to join us?
Yeah, hi, it's Soler.
Soler, okay.
Just so you know, yeah. So yeah, I'm going to enter my senior year at FIU, and I was gonna study abroad this summer, so that didn't end up happening, so I don't have an internship. And I was gonna ask, for people like me who they had other plans for the summer, so they couldn't really find an internship until really last minute. like, what do you suggest to like further experience? Because like I don't have as much experience as like other people here on the chat because I'm a little bit younger and I just started. And so like what other advice, because I've like tried, I don't know like what to do like in terms of experience without having that internship or that job opportunity.
There are so many nonprofits in need of communications help right now, of all kinds of help. When I say they need help from a PR perspective, they need help from a development perspective, they need help from a creation of collateral perspective, storytelling, newsletter writing, you name it. There's dire need from nonprofits. And I tell you, because we're big corporate citizens, so we work a great deal with a lot of nonprofits. And this is what we're hearing from the nonprofits. You know, we're lacking volunteer help. We're lacking this. You can do a lot of resume building with a lot of that work. So reach out to, you know, a couple of nonprofits that you really feel passionate about and offer your services as part of an internship. And when I say they need help from a PR perspective, they need help from a development perspective, they need help from a creation of collateral perspective, storytelling, newsletter writing, you name it. There's dire need from nonprofits. And I tell you, because we're big corporate citizens, so we work a great deal with a lot of nonprofits. And this is what we're hearing from the nonprofits. You know, we're lacking volunteer help. We're lacking this. You can do a lot of resume building with a lot of that work. So reach out to, you know, a couple of nonprofits that you really feel passionate about and offer your services as part of an internship and say, hey, I really want to be able to help you in your newsletter writing. You know, who's doing that these days? Can I contribute by writing stories? Can I contribute by doing interviews? Because that you can do from your home.
Yeah, and
I wanted to add something here. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just get it. You know, I'm started an organization called Neighbors for Neighbors, part of Channel 4, and they have a website. Well, in their website, neighborsforneighbors.org. There's a link to a page that they have, or actually it's more like a system where you can volunteer. It's called Helping Feels Good. And one of the things that you could do, a lot of nonprofits list these needs that Rosanna's talking about there. And you can, through that website, you can offer your skills and say that you're interested in doing an internship. We just had a young man there, actually a high school graduate, who just got a Silver Knight Award for business, and he's been with the organization as an intern and eventually became an employee for all throughout like his 11th and 12th grade, believe it or not. He has great skills, you know, so a lot of students have skills that people that are there might not have, you know, because of how many changes there've been and how savvy young people are now with social media skills and IT skills. That's what this young man was doing, actually. It's a lot of IT work. So again, it's neighbors, the number 4, neighbors.org, and go to the page that says Helping Feels Good. And you can register there. And they have hundreds of nonprofit organizations in both counties, it's all local, that have registered their needs there, and see if you can find something. It's a great suggestion, Rosanna.
Thanks for that resource, Nelly. And I wanted to jump off of that. Look, from a news perspective, and I did the story about 2 months ago, nonprofits, they get a lot of their funding from big fundraisers, the galas, the big events that have been canceled because of COVID-19. So that need is there. I'm on the board of directors for the Miami Diaper Bank, and I know about the need within the nonprofits personally, and also from covering it as a journalist. So to Rosanna's original point, you can find these resources. Nelly has given you a great resource. Let's call on Amy. Amy, let's bring you in. Amy Amaralt. Amaralt, is that how we say your name?
Yep, that's it. You got it.
Are you an FIU student? Are you a professional? Where are you coming from?
No, I am a huge fan of Rosanna Fisk. I am on her.
So you got to hear her speak. Have you met her before?
I have.
All right. Is this one of your employees, Rosanna, or what?
It is.
I was
Club.
gonna just make that connection. What did you think about? First of all, did I acquire you as a fan as well? Yeah.
Amy's actually in Charleston, South Carolina. So
Okay. So Amy, I was gonna ask if I now acquired you as a fan, but that's a joke. I wanted to know what you thought about our discussion. What did you think about the content we brought today?
I thought it was really great. And, you know, one of the things that really resonated with me was something that Ro actually said, her answer to how she battles fear. And she said, you know, I do more research. What I have control over is my knowledge. And, you know, that way of thinking about things is not one of my top strengths.
Right.
I think Ro can tell you that. And so it is something that she has taught me that's really important. And so I think, you know, using that mindset right now is something that's been really helpful. So that's something that really resonated with me.
That's amazing. Rosanna, I want to draw on one thing that we said we talk about, we didn't touch on yet, but circling back through the notes, for anybody thinking about building their own business or their own blog or monetizing it or not, but going in that direction of entrepreneurship, this is, I would think, I've never done that, but a good time because there is that downtime, right? Can you talk about some things people can do that are tangible? If that's an aspiration they have, how can they make the most of these moments that we have?
yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about going on your own, I've done that too. I will tell you that really work on your business plan. This is the perfect time to do that. And when, you know, it doesn't have to be a full-on MBA type of business plan, but it definitely has to have the components that every business plan needs. You know, what's your purpose? What are you going to be about? Who are you going to target? How are you going to make money? You know, what things will you do? What things won't you do? You know, all of those factors are important. Can you go at it alone? What are your tools and resources that you need? Trust me, you need to sit down and really detail all of that before you say, oh, I'm going to do this. I can do this. I'm going to go at it on my own.
Remember, if you're in need of assistance, please go to our CARTA homepage. There's CARTA Cares. Not only is the college assisting students the best way they can, the universities too. Don't be afraid to ask for help. We all need support. Doesn't matter who you are or what your position in. So please go to our homepage, CARTA Cares.
And then just know that I've learned this through my reporting. You can contact your local commissioner's office for any resources you need right in your community. Like there's ways to go through the school, just start talking. I think we got to keep the dialogue going. Lillian is a great force at the Lillian Lodge Copenhaver Center. Lillian Abreu, I'm talking about, not Dr. Copenhaver. We want to acknowledge you and thank you for helping us put this together. It's been such a fantastic, thank you, Dr. Copenhaver, for this opportunity, experience. For me, this has been a fruitful conversation. I love giving back and I love mentorship. Rosanna, what do you think about this thing that we did today?
Oh, I think this has been amazing, absolutely amazing. And I want to thank Rosanna and Stephanie for a very lively and instructive and inspirational conveison. It's been really terrific. The two of you are a good pair too, with making this happen.
Never met in real life, but I email you, Rosanna, about going into the private sector. No, but there you go. She's gonna remember me, I hope.
I was just wanted to thank our speakers for today and for all of you who have joined us. I think it's been a really great conversation. And I want you to know too that the Copenhaver Center is also here for you. That's what we do. We are here to help people, no matter where you are in your careers, whether you're starting out, whether you're out there, and we can help. You know, our website is copenhavercenter.fiu.edu. Let us know if we can help in any way, shape, or form. And look for some more of these types of workshops coming up. I think that we need to have continuing conversations. And you know, since we're all sitting home right now, we're forced into being home. This is a good vehicle, but who knows what the fall is going to bring. And so we'll continue to have these conversations. So anybody want to throw anything in for the last minute?
I shared my email just in case anybody needs to reach out to the Copenhagen Center, myself, maybe for COVID or maybe to connect with one of the speakers. And again, thank you everyone for joining. This has been great.
Yes, thank you. And I wish you all the greatest of success. Thanks again.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.